I will call this meeting to order on October 10th, 2024 at 10 o'clock and 4 minutes. You're wondering what I was banging. Good morning. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Andrian.
Here.
And is there anyone with you and your location?
Yes, I'm at home with my wife and my kids, but I'm in a private room right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Chamberlain.
Morning, I'm here and I'm in my residence and I'm alone.
Thank you. Commissioner Dexter is on his way and at this time is excused. Commissioner Knapp, I believe, intends to attend the meeting, but at this time is excused. Commissioner Moore.
I'm here and I'm alone.
Thank you. Commissioner Spellman.
Good morning. Present and alone.
Thank you. And I assume both Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Spellman are at their principal residences?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, having taken care of the roll and noting that we do have a quorum of the commission, would like now some, without objection, confirmation of the agenda. Seeing head nods. And thank you. And I don't believe we let the record show that Commissioner Knapp has joined us. Commissioner Knapp, your location, is there anybody with you?
Good morning. Apologies for the tardiness. I am alone in my office in Lahaina.
Thank you so much. I do not believe our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino, I don't believe we have any new commissioners joining us at this meeting.
Good morning. I don't believe that Mr. Freitas is here this morning. So we have a couple of guests that I'm not sure who they are, but I'm not sure if Commissioner Freitas is able to join us.
Understood. So the next item on our agenda is public testimony. In accordance with the Sunshine Law, we will permit public testimony on any item on the agenda at this time. Or if you are here for public testimony and would like to testify prior to a block of items on the agenda. So the agenda has Roman numerals for each block. If you want to defer your testimony until closer to that item, you can indicate when I call on you for testimony. So at this time, I'll open up the floor for public testimony. I believe that both David Good and Jonathan Lull are here to testify. I'll open it up to Mr. Good. Would you like to testify at this time, sir? And I believe technical writer Pellegrino, we have to permit his mic and his camera.
He should be able to turn on his mic and camera at this point.
Aloha, members. Can you hear me?
You can be heard. Thank you very much. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair.
To.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. I'm David Good. I'm speaking as a former county official, as a public works director for a number of terms, and I happened to see Interim Chair's Dust presentation to the council a couple of weeks ago, talking about boards and commissions and some work the your particular commission did a number of years ago. So I just want to provide some background on what our department did at the time, and which I think could actually help future departments do something similar if that's the direction they want to go. But Interim Chair did tell the committee that as far as he knows, the 2010-2011 Cost of Government Commission report, which was focused on the efficiencies within the myriad of boards and commissions within the department, could be streamlined. When I returned back to county service in early 2011, our Department of Public Works had 5 boards and commissions. Board of Code Appeals, Subdivision Engineering Standards Committee, Street Lighting Committee. We had a commission on naming of streets, parks, and facilities, and we had the Traffic Safety Council. A wide variety. Each one had 7 to 9 members. So you're looking at like 40-something people. A variety of staff handling that from different divisions. And all of them met from almost never to, semi-frequently. When I came in 2011, I had no idea about the cost of government report, right? One of the problems with transitions in administrations is things like that don't always get transferred easily. But I was made aware of it, maybe say by 2012-ish or something, and dove into the report. And what we did is we took a look at what they had recommended. And I can't remember exactly what the commission recommended, but it wasn't. What we ended up doing was slightly different. But we convened our division heads and personnel that handle all those different entities, and said, "Well, what would we do? This is a good starting point. What would we do?" Because clearly, staff was not motivated to deal with the commission, the various boards and commissions very well, in my opinion. We had a variety of subject matters, as you can imagine, based on what I said, that they were. And we needed to, I thought, do a better job of engaging those members and getting them, motivated to show up to meetings and give them some meatier subjects. And we, as a department, had to think about all those 5 things. Why couldn't we form a single commission or board that they had to think about these same 5 things and give us their know on how we should move forward on those items? They basically didn't have decision-making authority. It was all advisory. So what we ended up doing, and we met with the planning department as well, the first thing we did was we asked the planning department, look, the Board of Code Appeals has seen like 1 item in 3 years. Why not fold what they do? And you can imagine the Board of Code Appeals, they already have a Board of Variance and Appeals within the planning department. Combine the 2. Planning department said, yeah, no problem, we'll do that. If an item comes up in the Board of Code Appeals, is someone appealing the building code, we'll have our folks our building code experts write the report for you. They said, fine, they've done that. Quite frankly, in the 12 years since then, I don't know if they've even ever looked at any of these Board of Code Appeal items. So then we did is we suggested, let's take the other 4 remaining boards and let's fold it into one singular board. And that was that became the Public Works Commission. And the Public Works Commission, then I thought, well, look, we'll staff that out of admin. We'll make it important. We'll make sure that either the director or the deputy attend every meeting. We'll give them a variety of subject matters to look at. And we're going to treat them like, a commission that has a little bit more stature and really gets members of the public that maybe it's going to be their first board and commission. This is a really good one. Right, and they had a variety of expertise is required. Obviously, you need civil engineers based on the subject matter. We need a Hawaiian language expert. We needed all kinds of other folks, and so we went to council with that concept. And after a few meetings of the council, they bought into the concept, and the Public Works Commission was born at the end of 2013. I think we probably had our first meeting in 2014 and elected a chair. So it's been going for 10 years now. And I thought, the work that this commission did back then, really set the table for us as a department once we were aware of the report, to make some changes. And I think as a result, it's freed up time with our staff for sure. They still got to come in. They got to participate on items that they're knowledgeable about. They gave the department, a sounding board of 9 members. Actually, we have 2 alternates the way it was set up. We got 11 people potentially. We have a sounding board throughout the community that we can work with who help champion the department's initiatives. And we've consolidated the work for everybody, significantly. So in summary, depending on how you folks move forward with these particular items, the potential is there, I'm sure, in all the other boards and commissions, because the reality is that there's less meeting space available, and I think you guys seem to be a victim of that. There's less people interested in serving on boards and commissions because people are very busy with their lives, and getting on a board and commission right now is not. A lot of people don't want to stomach the process, quite frankly. So you got less people interested, but you got good people that do participate, which is great. And it freed up staff time, and it really consolidated and made champions of the department. So I think that was a win. I think that was a big win, and it all came from the report that this commission did. So I apologize if I went over 3 minutes, but I thought it was good for you folks to understand that history in more detail, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Commissioners, clarifying questions. So if there are questions you have about what Mr. Good said, and you need a little more information to understand what he said, please indicate that you'd like to pose a clarifying question. Seeing none, I think we'll get into this matter later in the meeting. If you'd like to stay around, you're welcome to stay around, Mr. Good. If you have to go, because like most of us, we have busy lives, you're free to do so. There will be a recording available via Kaku on this. Commissioner Chamberlain, you have a clarifying question.
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Good's testimony, and I think it's very important to realize that there was good work done in the past, and there was some benefit from that, so that's great. I have another question relative to his perspective, relative to the organization of Public Works. I was wondering what his thoughts were, and this falls a little bit out of line with what the commission subject is right now, but has to do with, again, reorganization of current departments.
Commissioner,
can we do that?
You cannot do that in this forum because that item is not on the agenda, and it's
okay.
And,
perhaps we can ask
Mr. Good did not.
Perhaps we can
if
ask.
he's willing to come back as a resource, if the commission decides to look at county organization in terms of departments and duties, we can extend the invitation. He's a private citizen, so whether he accepts the invitation, it's entirely up to him. Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Good.
Welcome.
One question. What was your what was the underlying organizational principle that you employed during your review and reconfiguration of the various associated commissions?
Thank you, Commissioner. That's an interesting question. Number one, I was always focused on efficiencies. I think maybe that's my engineering/contracting background. And I saw staff time and expertise as, a limited resources that we really needed to deploy on so many different matters. And if they were getting bogged down, in setting up a meeting and calling all the members and trying to set an agenda, it really took away from other things that I felt they should be spending their time on, which in case, let's say, the engineering division, is reviewing and building roads, bridges, drainage structures, and things like that. So I think that was kind of the overarching. And then secondly, I just felt that, 5 boards and commissions for one department just seemed untenable. How did that happen? Why did that happen? I think there's reasons it happens because issues come up, and so a quick legislative fix is let's form a committee, right? Let's form a commission, without ever stepping back and saying, "Well, wait a minute here. Let's take a look at the whole thing." So that's kind of what we did. And then finally, I just asked our division heads and key staff that worked under them, who were very knowledgeable about all this, and they have great ideas. And actually, what we ended up with was a byproduct of input from all of them, and less so from me. My impetus was mainly get them together and let's fix this thing.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, so you did this 2016 or 2012?
12, and I think the ordinance, which I looked up just before came online here, the ordinance passed in November or so of 2013.
Kind of given the post-COVID, post-August 8th, 2023 environmental events, would you employ today a different organizational approach than you did previously?
I don't think so. I think there's even more limited staff resource now. I mean, as you may be aware, the county is short in positions, and particularly in engineering staff, which our department is heavily engineering staff. And so given the even more limited resources and the more demand certainly caused by the fire, it's all the more reason to consolidate and potentially eliminate where it's no longer needed.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other clarifying questions for our testifier? Seeing none, with the commission's thanks, Mr. Good, thank you very much for coming and testifying and providing that information.
My pleasure. Thanks all. Thank you for serving, everyone.
I believe, technical writer Pellegrino, we have Mr. Lal to testify next. Seeing that his camera is on and he can enable his mic. Mr. Lal, before you start testifying, could you identify the agenda item to which you will be testifying?
I am testifying on item 10, specifically A2 and A3. I'm not sure if that's two different items or if it's one item.
So to clarify, the Department of Management Communication Coordination Practices and county roadways and sea level rise?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. We did not set a limit on testimony, but be advised that the chair will step in if you stray dramatically from the agenda. Please go ahead, Mr. Lal, and also after you finish your testimony, please remain for any clarifying questions.
Okay, so I am Johan Lal, and I'm testifying on behalf of myself. And first, I want to congratulate the new members. I kind of know one of them. I know Kevin Spellman from working at the planning department. Not closely, but he seemed like a super smart guy, very knowledgeable and good because you guys are reviewing stuff relating to planning and permitting. So, I do want to say too, what David Good was talking about, very important because the boards and commissions have so much power in our system, especially planning commission. And anyway, so on item A2, COM Connect. I think the public generally knows this as See Click Fix because that's the website you go to report violations of all kinds. And I actually think it's a very effective system. And what's great about it is that everyone can see what's on there. So there's a lot of transparency. You post your pictures of the violation, and if you're signed up, you get email alerts when there's stuff in your area or stuff close to what you've reported before. So it's a good way to get information out and get also people to know what kind of things they can report. So I love the system. I do think there should be better interconnectivity between departments because, like what Josiah Nishita said in his report, is that stuff comes in and then it gets assigned to a department. But often things have multiple departments that they are applicable to. For example, in Kihei, we have a 7-acre, it's a parcel that is referred to as Waipuilani Mauka, where there was illegal clearing that was reported. But because of the item that the reporter selected, it went to Public Works. And at that time, there wasn't any grading yet. There was just clearing, which is an SMA violation because you need SMA permits to do that kind of thing in the SMA. So the planning department didn't actually see it until a few days later. I submitted for specifically the clearing in the SMA. And then at that point, the planning department saw it. So there's room for improvement. In this particular instance, then work continued even though it was reported, and no one actually did anything about it. 5 weeks later, there was a warning sent. But the fire department actually did not get a notification on that, and was encouraging the landowner to continue work that was actually illegal. So, you know, and I'm sure this kind of thing happens everywhere, where it's like there's multiple departments that should be looking at something, including fire, including police, but once it gets funneled to a department, then no one else sees it. So if you guys review this, I would encourage looking at the big picture of how it all works, and how enforcement happens too, I guess, or I don't know if that would be a part of the scope of this. And then on that article, the county roadways and sea level rise, I think, so I kind of don't like when people use the term government bureaucracy because it has a negative connotation, and it's like the implication is that whatever the government's doing is unnecessary or it's wasteful or whatever. I don't think that's the literal meaning of the word, but that's what the public sees when they read an article like that. And I just want to say sea level rise is really important to the cost of like a lot of things we're doing, building infrastructure. You know, the article kind of presents it as like we need to fix these roads, but there's all these roadblocks, like literally roadblocks in some cases. But we need to consider the cost of like building that road over and over again, or building a seawall, as opposed to moving the road up higher where it's not within the reach of sea level rise, or like what we're seeing in like Florida right now, all these storm surge events, flood events, and then having people be able to escape if there's a disaster. That's super important. So it's really important to actually have review and regulation that looks at all this stuff. So, you know, if anything, we need more regulation in this area, not less. You know, the new, sorry, I might be going a little bit long, but you know, the new SMA rules are actually and shoreline rules are relaxed in a lot of ways. And there's one error in that article. And so it says it refers to the shoreline setback as a no build area. But that's technically not true. You can build in the shoreline, you just need permits or emergency permits or whatever. So in any case, this is an important thing to look at, the big picture of regulation, how it affects public safety and infrastructure costs, all that kind of stuff. So that's my testimony, Mahalo.
Thank you. Please hang on for any questions. But first, as a matter of record, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Dexter, who arrived at approximately 10:26, so about 3 minutes ago. Commissioner Dexter, location, and are you by yourself?
I am home and alone.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dexter. Commissioners, any clarifying questions on either items that Mr. Lau testified to? Seeing none, thank you very much for your Commissioner Spellman, last minute question.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Full disclosure, yeah, I do currently work for the planning department in the current division, and Mr. Lowe worked in a different division. Just a clarifying question. As a former county employee, do you know what system the planning department or public works use to process their permits?
Yes, that would be MAPS, MAPPS, which I actually was going to mention, and I forgot, is it's a separate thing from See Quick Fix, which is important. If you guys do any kind of review of these kind of systems, maybe that would be another thing to look at, because my experience with MAPS is it's pretty terrible, and I think probably everyone in the planning department would agree. And I've also heard this complaint from people who are architects and people who do private consulting. They get complaints from their clients. It's hard to use, and then they're trying to apply for permits. Super difficult. And I actually got training, and I still can't figure out a lot of stuff on maps. It also reduced transparency because a lot of documents that were previously in the old system in Kiva are not available in maps. So you have to ask the planning department, or I guess Public Works, for those documents if you want to look at a project or something, or do a UIPA request. So very, very inefficient.
Thank you.
Do you know how many departments use maps?
It may be all the ones that are involved in permits, because I know it's planning, Public Works, the fire department. I can't think of any others, but I know for sure those.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Lau. If the commission decides to look into maps, we might want to invite him back as a resource and have a more extensive discussion on that. If he's available, I'm willing to do so. Technical writer Pellegrino, do we have anybody else who has indicated an interest in testifying at the start of the meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. I do not see anyone else if they've not raised their hand.
And I believe Mr. Lau's already testified. He can take his hand down if he would like. I believe that we can close testimony without objections at the beginning of the meeting. Of course, according with Sunshine, we'll have to come back to testimony and see if anybody wants to testify prior to deliberations on any of the items listed on our agenda. No objections? Seeing none, testimony at the beginning of the meeting is now closed. Written testimony will always be accepted into the record. I see our next item on the agenda is to review correspondence received, and I see no listed correspondence. So without objection, we will move on unless technical writer Pellegrino has something she needs to bring to our attention. Not seeing that, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda was to review and approve our draft commission meeting minutes from our last meeting, September 18th. I asked technical writer Pellegrino to reach out to our guest at that meeting, Mr. Pluta, so to give him an opportunity to review the section of draft minutes that dealt with his discussion with us, to make sure that we had captured everything correctly before we took action on these minutes. And for that reason, we have not heard back from Mr. Pluta. We hope to hear from him prior to the November meeting. So without objection, I will defer this item on the agenda. Seeing none. Ms. Pellegrino, is the county auditor available for the update, which is the next agenda item?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I do not see the county auditor in the meeting today.
So without objection, I'll defer that item. Next item is update on recruitment and nomination process for the commission. Technical writer Pellegrino, would you like to update the body and perhaps also invite our ex officio member from the mayor's office if she has information on this item as well? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I do not have an update. My last communication with the mayor's office was that they were presenting a name to the county council last week, but I have not received an update as to whether that was done and who that individual is.
Ms. Madong, do you have any information or would you like to comment on this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. I do not have any comments at this time.
Thank you so much. And Pete, please, you are welcome to raise your hand at any time during the commission's discussion if you have pertinent information from the administration that you'd like to convey.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is discuss potential topics for review and possible establishment of temporary investigative groups or TIGs. The first sub-item under that is county practices and procedures governing building permit issuance. Does the commission have discussion on that item? And perhaps before I get too deep into it, I'll open the floor again. If there's somebody who likes to testify on any of the listed potential topics that for which they have not given testimony. Mr. Lau, your hand is still up. Is there another item on that section of the agenda you'd like to testify on?
No, there is not. I can't figure out how to lower my hand. Sorry.
Up at the top of the screen, so you go chat and then people, and then there's a right. If your hand is up, it says lower, and I think you have successfully lowered your hand. Thank you. So, members of the commission, commissioners, no discussion on item 11.1. Commissioner Spellman.
So I feel like item A1 and A5 and A6 and to some degree A3 are all related, and really A2 actually. Is that alright if I kind of speak towards all of that?
You can speak to all.
So I don't know if anybody saw the Oliver Stone JFK movie, but the character played by Mr. X, he's discussing in the middle of the movie kind of why everything was kind of happening, or the setting around the JFK assassination, and he mentions the principal the fundamental organizational principle for a society is for war. Now, obviously, that's not particularly relevant to Maui County, but pull back a little bit and you kind of think about like war kind of in a general set, and it's a change in society, and it really results in three major losses. It's a loss of control, a loss of life, and a loss of property. And if we look at Maui County through that lens, perhaps you could analogously or metaphorically consider Maui to be at war with climate change. And when you think of the August 8th, 2023 environmental events and the loss of life and the loss of control that we had. It took a long time to kind of recapture and provide supplies to people who were in need, and the massive loss of property that we sustained. Perhaps as we look at processes and government structure and the boards and commissions, we first decide what our fundamental organizational principle would be for the larger government at all. And since we are the cost of government at all commission, and we need to kind of utilize the principles of the Yellow Book, the Government Accountability Office auditing standards, colloquially known as the Yellow Book, to be able to first understand the efficiency or efficacy of a department or a board and commission, or even the processes therein, kind of within workflows, such as maps, as brought up by Mr. Lowe, or how Public Works processes permits. I think once we decide that principal organizational approach that we want to use, then we can say, we look at each department and say, should each department have a commission? Kind of like what Public Works did. Yes, it seems that commission allows access for volunteers to review the work of either the executive branch or the legislative branch commission and offer their feedback. And in some cases, it's quasi-judicial, where they can actually make decisions, and those decisions are required, or how details, being content or data, is then passed through the workflows to the various stakeholders. Yeah. So I think maybe if we kind of pull ourselves back and start from kind of a higher view, we can achieve more than we can by looking at all of these items individually. Especially, I think, I really wanted to talk about the West Side Hospital because it's, I think, a very important issue. But since our last meeting, I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, we're kind of a big top-level commission. Instead of just looking at the West Side Hospital, let's look at capital projects as a workflow itself. And then possibly we could divide it up into large, medium, small capital projects, and then we could use the West Side Hospital as an instance to test the workflow that we create from after our deliberations and possibly going to a TIG. And I just wanted to kind of present that idea for discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellman. Commissioner Chamberlain, you put some material into the chat. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe Commissioner Spellman could review that quickly, but I put that there because from what Commissioner Spellman was trying to convey, I think that's good. However, relative to the larger picture and so on and so forth, I think a lot of it comes down to planning and then implementation. So we have these big pictures, and then we have the Maui County plan, Maui Island plan, and so on and so forth. We have these plans in place that have been vetted and so on and so forth and worked on, but relative to actually following the plan and implementing elements of the plan, seems to be a big problem. And I think the culture here in Maui has been somewhat what I defined as perpetual planning. And so with that, the justification, so on and so forth, and what occurs when there's perpetual planning without implementation, you get these situations that never really progress. The plans never progress. So the ideas and the plans never implemented. And so from that perspective, I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention and any discussion that people might have in regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Moore?
Thank you. Commissioner Spellman, thank you for that overview. I can see you're a big picture thinker, which is always good. When I think about this commission and maybe just my role on this commission, I appreciate, that view. I also think about what I believe we can actually accomplish. And sometimes you have to take small steps to get to the big steps. And so the way I'm kind of looking at this is we have several topics that different commission members have introduced, and maybe they all kind of weave together at some point. But I'm thinking about those of us on this commission, maybe we're not full-time employees of the commission or of the county. And so my view is I would prefer to tackle one or two topics, do a good job on that, and then see how we could weave those together towards that bigger picture. So again, I don't want to throw cold water on what you're saying here, but I'm thinking about things that are actually doable, that we can introduce, that may make a difference with the county. One of the things that I've done that I found to be extremely interesting is reading the county charter. I know most people don't stay up at night reading the county charter, but I think you learn a lot by reading the county charter, because the form of government here is such that it restricts a lot of the things I think that we want to do. Again, if you want to make some changes, everything has to go to the vote of the people via an amendment. And so structurally, it's difficult to make changes because, we all know the public generally isn't real engaged in a lot of these issues. Most people don't even show up to vote. So thinking about how you can make these changes, you really have to go out there, identify what's important to public, and see if you can get those structural changes made. But in looking at the last number of years here in the county, a lot of those changes that are introduced that I think have been very good suggestions have fallen flat. So again, how can we leverage the knowledge of this group here and maybe start to make incremental changes that are going to impact, and then hopefully impact the larger picture. Again, that's just my view.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Knapp.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that I concur with Commissioner Moore on that, a little bit more tactical approach, smaller scope items. That was the main point I wanted to make there. Also, maybe what is the mandate of the Cost of Government Commission, with regard to how granular problem solving, recommendations we make as far as workflows for departments and stuff seems pretty, I don't know if that's something in the past. I know that we would assess the cost of the current operations, its functionality, its efficiency, make recommendations for its improvement. But I don't know, kind of dovetails back into what Commissioner Moore was saying, but making all that actionable. What is our authority levels within that? I'm not sure. Thank you.
I was digging out my copy of the charter and try to find exactly, because our scope and our powers are defined in the charter. And I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. So if another commissioner would like to jump in and continue the discussion while I go look, I would welcome that.
I can contribute a little in response to Commissioner Chamberlain's content in the chat. Yeah, analysis paralysis is absolutely an issue, and that is to be avoided, yeah, at all costs sometimes, for sure. So when you provide content, or first provide the parameters for which will guide your considerations, your deliberations, your analysis, keeping those as tight as you can, as Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Knapp are suggesting, towards just more tactically, for a specific issue, it is critical. I would agree, because essentially in public administration, there's the four components of review. There's intent, approach, strategy, and tactics. So if we understand the intent of the Cost of Government Commission, which seems to be looking at costs, I would submit that it is very difficult to ascertain the cost of even the smallest issue if first you don't understand the workflow required to produce the relevant outputs to that issue. So, for example, a process requires an input, creates an output. A workflow is a connection of processes. So if we don't know what personnel is necessary, what other inputs such as materials, or details, content, or data, and what it costs to procure those, or to establish the knowledge necessary to operate that workflow effectively and efficiently to produce those outputs relevant to the particular issue, I would submit that we would be unable to determine its cost. And if that's the intent of the Cost of Government Commission, we would then fail in our intent. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellman. I found the section with the help of our technical writer. So, in the Charter section 3-9.3, which describes the Cost of Government Commission, it says, the Commission shall have the power and duty to 1. Study and investigate the organizations and methods of operations of all departments, commissions, boards, offices, and other instrumentality of all branches of the county government, and determine what changes, if any, may be desirable to accomplish the policies set forth herein. 2, be authorized to secure directly from any department, commission, board, office, or any other instrumentalities of all branches of the county government, or from any individual officer or an employee of the county, information, suggestions, estimates, and statistics necessary to carry out its duties. And 3, submit an annual report of its findings and recommendations to the mayor, council, and county auditor. But also in that same section, it says the commission shall be advisory to the county auditor. And for the record, our county auditor arrived while Commissioner Spellman was discussing this matter. So I believe we have wide latitude to investigate all aspects of county government, from the broad picture to the very narrow picture, and make recommendations to the county auditor. With that, I will go to Commissioner Knapp, and then after that, I am going to ask the county auditor if he has an update. So, Commissioner Knapp.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that we're saying the same thing. It's just a question of scoping and the scope of which we want to look at things. And that's all I think that we're all saying the same thing. The same rigor and analysis technique would go into whatever we decide to focus on. I just believe, I think a smaller scope is the way I would prefer to work.
Thank you, Commissioner Knapp. County Auditor Taguchi, do you have an update for us? You were not available when we got to your agenda item, but I'd invite you to give us an update if you have one at this time. Are we having a technical difficulty? Or
He should be able to.
there we go. There he is.
Can you see me? Sorry,
Yes.
I'm having some technical difficulties. No, I don't have anything to update. Sorry, I missed the beginning part of the meeting. But no, I don't have any updates at this point.
Thank you very much, County Auditor Taguchi. Thank you for attending, and always we welcome your updates. So, going back to our discussion of potential topics to review and possible establishment of temporary investigative groups, we have sort of a laundry list of items right now. And we do have the last item on the list regarding boards and commissions. Council is in the process. In fact, on Friday, there is a resolution on the agenda to urge us to look to revisit the work of the past Cost of Government Commission in 2011, 2012, or 2010, 2011, I stand corrected, to look at boards and commissions and make some recommendations as to what should stay and what should go, or if everything as it is fine. As chair, I would like the commission to consider whether are we willing to take on that scope? Because it's up to you as a commission whether you accept that request from county council or not. And two, if we do accept that request, my understanding is this request is being driven by the challenge that the administration and council has had in providing members for all the various boards and commissions. That's sort of like, I'm gonna try to draw an analogy here. I have a house, and the house has 5 bedrooms because at one time I had, myself, my wife, and 3 kids. And the 3 kids are now gone. They're adults. They've moved on. And so now, is the solution I should call up a contract, an architect, and design removing 3 bedrooms from the house? Or should I think about putting in ads in Craigslist and getting 3 people to occupy and generate income from the 3 extra bedrooms? What strikes me, fellow commissioners, is that council is saying we're having trouble filling positions, so let's get rid of boards and commissions to shrink them down so there's less positions to fill. Maybe the problem is that the process of filling the commission, the spots on the boards and commissions has gotten so acrimonious that nobody in the general public really wants to go run the gauntlet. And I think David Good sort of hinted at that in his testimony. So discussion that I'd like to hear from the commission is, one, Do we want to take on this charge from council when it gets to us? 2, what sort of scope? And 3, do we want to do this as a whole, as a commission? Or do we want to form a temporary investigative group and have a subset of the commission go off, do the work, and come back with a set of recommendations? Commissioner Andrian and then Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I have questions on this charge from County Council. Would the newly minted independent nomination board come under that scope of investigation? Would you say?
My interpretation is that they are asking us to review all boards and commissions. Now, the independent nomination board is established by charter. So if we were to recommend blowing it away, that would require a charter amendment.
Yeah, and that's why I ask. I mean, you kind of said it in so many words when it comes to filling these boards and commission and the process becoming even more daunting for people to even want to be interested. I don't know if that falls under our purview to look at something that was newly minted by county charter, but maybe at least the way it's done or the way it's being conducted needs to be more efficient. And if that comes under our purview as the cost of government, just my thoughts there.
I think the charter gives us broad responsibilities to look at all aspects of county government. And personally, if something isn't working, then I have no trouble figuring out why it doesn't work and making recommendations to either fix it or disband it. Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. Thank you for that overview too. I think this is great that the county council actually is coming to this commission saying, hey, we need some help. Would you be willing to look over this? So I think it's wonderful. I think we jump on that opportunity. And I want to say I appreciate Commissioner Chamberlain, for your work getting us started on this. I think it's a great tool to get us talking about these various boards and commissions. Certainly there can be efficiencies there. So I think it'd be great if all of us were willing to work on it. I certainly am interested in this. And it kind of dovetails a lot of these issues together, whether it's the difficulty getting people to sign up for these boards and commissions, because there are frankly too many of them. And the whole process, we still haven't gotten a real good answer, I don't think, about the entire process. And again, maybe that's in the works, but I think it'd be very good for this commission to actually start working on this particular topic.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dexter, the floor is yours.
It seems to me this would be a good opportunity. Basically, the question, as I understand it, that we would be pursuing is, what is our recruitment method and how is it effective? Because when I think about all this, the result, we have a new commission that basically is a part of the appointment process. We have that wrinkle to it, but I also consider, what incentives do we have for commissioners to participate to begin with? Me, I just like civic service. I love it. That's my thing. I'll gladly do it for free. I'll gladly give my time. But I think about the sorts of people who may want to participate, but do not have the means to do so. So I'm thinking the people who work 2-3 jobs, just trying to pay for, rent over their head, feed their families, right? So I think this is a good one to pursue because it also turns into a social equity problem. We're starting to isolate portions of our population who may not have the same access to paid time off as some of us, certain positions, right? So I think it would be good to pursue this one. I'd be interested in jumping in on this. I'd be curious to see if this resolution passes. But but I'm willing to jump in if others are.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Knapp.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree. I think it's in our mandate. It makes sense. I mean, efficiencies. So I'm in agreement with this, and I'm also curious to see how council votes on it. But I think even without that, it's worthwhile. It's a good set of projects.
Thank you. I'll remind the commission that at our September meeting, there was direction to invite the mayor's lead on staffing for getting volunteers for boards and commissions, Ms. Corey Vincennes, and the chair of the independent nominating board to come to this meeting. They were not available, but have indicated that they are available for our November meeting. So we will be able to jump in on the recruitment and vetting process quite quickly at our next meeting. I'm seeing a consensus of the commission of commissioners to accept the charge from county council to look at boards and commissions. I think we will, with permission of the commission, if you would like to have your interim chair respond when we formally receive that resolution, given the resolution is carried by a majority vote of council. If you would like to give me permission to acknowledge receipt of the resolution and to pass on our agreement to take on that work, I'll be glad to do that. I think for that, I would entertain a formal motion to give that direction to the interim chair. And then after that, a formal notion to establish an examination of county boards and commissions as a work item for the Cost of Government Commission as a whole.
I don't know how to word it, but so moved. Good enough.
I'll second.
There's a second. So on the first motion, moved by Commissioner Andrian, seconded by Commissioner Moore, to authorize interim chair Evan Dusk to respond affirmatively to a resolution from council for the cost of government as a whole to investigate the number and nature, recruitment for vetting process for county boards and commissions. Discussion on the motion goes first to the move-on. Commissioner Andrian. No further discussion. Commissioner Moore as the second. No further discussion. Other commissioners, discussion on the motion on the floor. Seeing head shakes, I'll take that as no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, raise your hand and unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Let the record show that we have a unanimous vote, affirmative, for the motion on the floor. So now I'll entertain, or we can have discussion on the second motion, which is establishing as a work item the examination of county boards and commissions and their recruitment practice or procedure?
Yes, so moved.
Moved by Commissioner Andrian.
That's
Second.
Just a quick question. The second part of that motion, that's not going to limit our scope to only recruitment.
No,
Or is that's just a bullet point?
that's just a bullet point. We as a body can set the scope of that work either at this meeting, or maybe we want to do it after we have our discussion with Ms. Vincenz and the chair of the Independent Nomination Board. Still looking for a second.
So move.
Seconded by Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? Move on to second. No discussion. Other commissioners, any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. So we have that set. Members, do we want to talk about scope now? Or do we want to defer that to our next meeting? Is there any other possible potential topics that commissioners would like to discuss? Commissioner Dexter.
It would be my preference to defer scoping this particular item only until we've had some discussion from the mayor's office. Once we get that, we'll have a better understanding of what the core issues are potentially, and then we can narrow it down from there.
Thank you. Other commissioners, is that the consensus? Looks good. So we will defer scoping that to our following meeting. Technical Writer Pellegrino, can we put this as a specific agenda item on our next for our next meeting?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. I will entertain any commissioner who would like to speak to the other listed potential topics, or any additional topic that they are currently investigating as an individual member of this commission. Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. I know I brought up the original issue of the West Maui Medical Facility, which I think is still very important. And I think it does come under the purview of the Cost of Government Commission, because if you don't have medical care for your constituents, your citizens here, I think there is a cost to not only the citizens, but to government for the lack of that particularly healthcare need. So that's why I brought it up. I did want to give you an update. I did some visiting with people on my own. Again, I made the reference that I'm asking these questions on my own. I was not representing the commission. I spoke to 2 people. However, I did not get their authorization to share their names today, but I can share a little bit of the information that they gave me, if that would be all right.
Please go ahead. And this is on the topic of the West Maui Medical Facility.
Right.
Okay. Please proceed, Commissioner.
Thank you. So a couple boards that I've served on that get involved in public policy, we often talked about whether a topic is ripe. And that means, whether a topic is timely, should we get involved in it and move forward with it? And I think it's important to understand how important timing is on any particular issue. I think right now, after talking to people, I have determined that this topic is not ripe for this particular board for a couple of different reasons. There are still people who are moving forward and working to get funding for the West Maui Medical Facility. And so I think that they're kind of doing some work both at the federal level, the state level, and even the local level. And so I feel like I would like to wait to see what kind of progress they make before certainly I would jump into this, because these are the people that have the expertise, the people that I've talked to. They've been working on this topic for quite some time. They have an understanding of the medical field. They have an understanding of the cost of a facility like this. And so I would like to, in my mind anyway, I would like to step back and wait to see what they come up with first. Now, maybe at some point, a topic that we could, or all of us or some of us could get involved in and really help move it forward. But in talking to the people that I've been working with or talking to the last month, I feel like, at least for me, it's not ready to take on this topic via the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion of the West Maui Medical Facility? Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Moore. I think that there is one item that Mr. Pluta at our previous meeting kind of tangentially addressed, and that was a possible request by private funders for Maui County to underwrite the financing with the county's stellar bond rating. If they want to issue some municipal bonds, or even just to underwrite, just the plain underwriting it. And as such, it may behoove us to obtain at least a kind of cursory understanding of where this project is at and who are the players that are involved in the private funding portion of this project. And I'm not sure about the rest of the commissioners, but I've traveled, in what people would call the developing nations a bit in my life. And I've seen a lot of projects that lost funding, and now there's just a dust fence with a skeleton of concrete behind it that is now just a complete gash on these communities and a drain on their resources to secure it, to keep nefarious actors from utilizing it, etc. Now, with that said, my preference would be to kind of pull back a little bit, again, being a big picture kind of person, and just look at capital projects generally. And so maybe we could ascertain or obtain an understanding of how the county engages in capital projects generally. And then when it comes time for us to look specifically at the Westside Hospital, we'll be able to kind of insert it to that workflow.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's certainly prior to the August 2023 wildfires. Cost of Government Commission did have an individual investigation on capital project delivery that didn't go very far before the fires kind of interrupted everything. So it might be worthwhile raising that as a broad question in terms of capital project delivery. Certainly speaking to Commissioner Chamberlain's previous discussion, reacting to your statements, Commissioner Spellman, I do find it interesting that this is one of the only counties I know of where the planning department has a division on implementation monitoring. That the organization would need to assign planners to monitor how well the plan is being implemented, rather than just, okay, we have a plan. The plan informs the county's capital project list. The priorities that are in the plan should be the priorities that are on the capital project list. Why does it take a division of people to sort of overlook that and sort of play play cop with other departments, and then why is that in planning versus being in the managing directors, the Department of Management? Because the Department of Management has the authority to call a director in and say, hey, You know, you two are not getting along. You've got to play better together. So, yeah, I don't know. Is there a interest in the commission to look concurrent with our work on boards and commissions to look at the capital project implementation process, or the plan to capital project process, with the hopes of, to me, I suspect that Public Works and Department of Water Supply and Environmental Management and Parks, the departments that have major capital projects, are maybe spinning their wheels a bit because they're not taking the direction from the community plans or from the island plan. But I don't know. Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, well, along that line, okay, I've been doing a little bit more investigative work relative to a capital improvement project associated with something I've been involved with a long time, and I can't understand why it doesn't move forward. And so a few days ago, I had a meeting with the new MPO relative to the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. And there's a line item there called MC28. And in MC28, it states, it's about the West Maui Greenway, and it has to, states that it's, first of all, the West Maui Greenway, it's been on the plans from the Hawaii Bike Plan on into various county plans and so on and so forth since 1974. It was supposed to be a project that was supposed to be implemented way back when. If, just bring something in context here, if the West Maui Greenway probably would have been in place, there would have been a whole lot of people that would have lost their lives in the Lahaina fire, because people, the majority of the people that had lost their lives in the Lahaina fire were blocked by fencing and so on and so forth, where the West Maui Greenway would have passed through. They didn't have an alternative way to get out, and so consequently they lost their lives because they couldn't escape. Anyway, going beyond that, I've been doing my little research relative to progressing with STIP. So in the STIP, the MC28 specifically designates the Surface Transportation Block Grant as a funding source for funding the project. And the Surface Transportation Block Grant is a formula grant, which is monies that is given from the federal government to the state government, and then it's delved out in percentages to the different counties, okay? The problem is that the county doesn't want to accept it. So the money sits there being unutilized, and then what happens is that the county, in regards to showing progress relative to this particular project, puts in for a competitive grant, i.e. the Safe Streets for All grant and the RAISE grants. And then when they don't get the grants, they say, well, we can't move forward with the project because, well, we don't have money. Which is dumbfounding to me because, again, the formula grant money sits there unutilized. And I cannot get any kind of an answer why the county does that. So this goes along the line with a lot of other capital improvement projects, I'm sure. But again, if you have identified funding source and then you don't utilize it, then you wonder why things don't get improved upon, you know, why these projects sit. And so that's something that I've been working on independently. And again, I put in a letter to the Public Works Director relative to maybe an explanation for this, and we'll see what happens to that. So that's my own independent study or investigation I'm doing. And so any comments, I'm happy to hear.
Helps if I unmute myself. Commissioner Knapp.
Thank you, Chair. Interesting information there. And I just have a comment on that in that I'm involved to some extent with the Lahaina Harbor rebuild, and your comment, your information about grant money going unused or money coming into the state or even the county and going unutilized is interesting, because there's a very similar thing that's just occurred with the money for the rebuild of the harbor, wherein they're saying they don't have money to do the bids that they're putting out for dredging and such, not to get into too much detail, whereas they turned down the FEMA money. So it's interesting that there seems to be a commonality amongst allowing good money to not get utilized is a common theme that I just, from your comments, I have knowledge that we, in fact, that our government did not take the money to rebuild the harbor that is in jeopardy of being lost. And it's even in the news, you hear about how there's no money to do the dredging. At any rate, I just want to make a comment on that, but about this identification of a common theme of grant money or funds being underutilized or unutilized. Just a comment. Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing,
Commissioner
if you don't mind. I just want to say that if you look at the planning department, okay, huge department, all kinds of planners, right? There's only one person that's currently manning the implementation segment of the planning department. It's got 3 positions or 4 positions, a manager and then 2 planners and then a GIS analyst. And I don't think those positions are full. So if you don't prioritize implementation, then nothing seems to get implemented. And to do that, you have to have a functioning implementation division, I think, or it's my idea. Any comment?
I see Commissioner Dexter.
Just a general comment when it comes to grants. As far as I know, sometimes there's certain terms and conditions that come with the grant money, which may influence an ultimate decision to actually take it. In addition to oversight of where that money goes, that could be part of what's going on, but I don't know enough about the issue to say either which way, but I just felt I put it out there just to play devil's advocate.
For the commission's benefit, my understanding is councils, and the name of this committee is I have a hard time wrapping my tongue around, but it's the initials of the committee are ESCS, and something about efficient solutions, circular or something. But apparently at their last meeting on Monday afternoon of this week, they asked all the departments that deal with grants to come before them and explain the grants that they are pursuing, the grants that they receive, like the Surface Transportation Block Grant, which is a formula grant, the grants that they receive by virtue of essentially population. So there may be, I don't know whether the question for the commission is grants and grants management, or capital project delivery, or planning versus programming of capital projects. All 3 of those could really consume a lot of time to investigate and could produce some really good results. I just don't know what the pleasure of the commission is in undertaking such investigations, and who wants to sort of lead that work. Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. I like the idea of similar to what we came up with for boards and commissions, is talking about it as a whole commission before we kind of break it down and send it to more detailed oriented or smaller scope review. So looking at the capital projects, grants is definitely a nice component that we can discuss and look about that workflow. With regards to the planning department, and obviously ethically, I can only really discuss what's publicly available information, but it does kind of go into looking at the structure of government as well, and obtaining a solid understanding of what the mission statement is for each department, so that we can see if maybe there's any overlap between those mission statements, see how those relate to the particular boards and commissions that are associated with those departments and what those mission statements are. Because I can say that oftentimes when you read the name of a department or a division, the words, the terms within that name can be misleading. And so it may be a good idea to reach out to these particular departments or ask for their directors to come and present to us so that we can ask questions about personnel, about resources that they use, and that we can put together a nice, solid description that then we can distribute to other, the council or other departments that may want to utilize that. But I would definitely be in favor of looking at capital projects and grants. And as Commissioner Dexter was saying, a lot of times with grants, you might have a chunk of money, but to use that chunk of money, there's a whole section of caveats and reporting and matching and other and restrictions on third parties that you can contract out to complete some of the items in the particular project. Grants are massive in their complexity.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellman. Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. Does the county have a specific grant writer, someone who's in charge of all county grants, so that each department is not out there working on its own, that someone's consolidating, knows, how many CDBG grants are out there, how many offers are there? Who's in charge? Is each department managing their own?
My understanding, but I also see that our ex officio member from the mayor's office had her hand up, so I'll put my 2 cents in. My 2 cents is that every department that potentially would like to have grants tends to come to council during budget asking for a grant writer. And I think that was the concern of the council committee that examined this issue was, hey, wait a minute, why are we, there may not be enough grant writers out there for every department to have their own grant writer. And what happens if one department goes after a grant that's in conflict with another department going after a similar grant? So I'll leave that. I will recognize Commissioner Chamberlain, and then I will ask Ms. Benag to weigh in if she has a comment from the mayor's office. Commissioner Chamberlain, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'd like to simplify things a little bit in regards to formula grants, okay, specifically relative to STIP. Okay, the way the STIP gets a line item is, first of all, it has to go through a big vetting process. There's a lot of different people that get involved in regards to going ahead and accepting that particular project as a worthwhile project and actually getting listed. And then, of course, the monies associated with it has to be allocated from the available sources. So in regards to, for example, the STIP, you have, first of all, an identified money source. You have a project that's been vetted and approved by various council members and commissioners and so on and so forth. And then you also have a a timeline, and there's specific timelines for it. So it's very specific, and it's gone through this process. And you would think that in regards to actually utilizing the money, it would be fairly easy. And it's not random that they choose this particular grant to fund this particular project. And so consequently, I don't know if there's a difference between the processes in regards to accountability and implementation from a formula grant versus a competitive grant. I guess that was one of the questions that came up. But if you want to hone in on something specific, this would be something specific to look at, you know. And again, going back to Commissioner Spellman's idea relative to war, you know, and I have to come from a military perspective, and, you know, first of all, to conduct a war, it takes an army. And then, but the army, first of all, is compiled of squads and then platoons and then companies and brigades and divisions and all that. Now, what are we exactly? You know, are we a squad, or are we enough to be considered a platoon? And then within that perspective, what can we complement or what can we do relative to the objective of winning the war? You know, just a thought from a Doug perspective, okay? Anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, Ms. Benang, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
Thank you, Chair. Can you guys hear me by chance?
A little louder if you can.
Oh, okay. I'm in the mayor's office, so I'm very, very used to not speaking too loud. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Just with regards to the discussion regarding grants, it was discussed, I believe, Monday in council. The mayor does recognize for the need for grant writers specifically to help the departments who do not currently have a grant writer, but I believe there are a few, but the grant writers are not necessarily the grant managers, meaning if there is, you know, I don't know that they specifically search out certain grants that could be available. So I believe the thought is to have it together so that any department that needs needs help with pursuing specific grants, whether it be water. I believe water have their own though, but water or I don't know, Department of Ag, that they can go to the grants team, so to speak. But I think more to follow on that. But I just wanted to let the commission know that Mayor does recognize the need for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? I would actually entertain a motion. Well, maybe it's premature. My thought is we need to have a scope for this investigation, just like we're going to have a scope for the boards and commissions, and in defining that scope, that would help us to narrow down, at what level we're looking at this, how detailed do we want to get. So perhaps what I would suggest is if there are members of the commission who would like to take a hand at that, we can't collaborate on a document outside of a duly noticed public meeting. But if somebody wanted to take the, just like Commissioner Chamberlain did with boards and commissions, to to take the topic and sort of think, okay, this is what a reasonable scope looks like, draft something up. You certainly can discuss that as an individual commissioner with our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino, and she can provide examples of scopes for other investigations that have been conducted in the past. And so that hopefully maybe prior to posting the agenda for the November meeting, we would have a document for this investigation that we could discuss. Does that seem to meet with consensus? Comments? Discussion? Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what we're trying to scope here exactly. So what is the subject area, or going back to military terms, what hill are we trying to overtake and control?
I think that's up to the commission to set. It could be to me, it could be a 10,000-foot view of the process of how things go from plan to program to actual delivery. It could be that, or it could be as detailed as just programming and funding, or it could be just delivery. So I think you're right, Commissioner Chamberlain, is that we need to have some more discussion. I did see Commissioner Moore's hand up prior to yours, Commissioner Chamberlain. I'll go to Commissioner Moore and then to you, Commissioner Chamberlain.
Thank you. I am like Commissioner Chamberlain. It's a little fuzzy in my mind what exactly we would need to scope. I think we need to have a little more discussion before somebody could be tasked with writing the scope for the board. I mean, unless somebody wants to do it, that's great, but I know that I don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm not exactly sure what this board or this commission really is looking for in a scope.
Maybe our first step, rather than scoping, is a problem statement. What are we trying to address? Commissioner Chamberlain? I didn't forget about you.
Well, thanks. I have two interesting thoughts, relative to potentially, I brought up one specific line item associated with the STIP, and then reviewing that and, interpreting how that should function along with that. So the MPO, and then going back to, again, Commissioner Spellman, discussion about different departments and overlaps and looking at their mission statements and so on and so forth. The MPO specifically says we're not an implementing department, okay? However, there are planning departments supposedly. But in regards to that, they're also getting away from anything being implemented by that. And then they're a funding source for that particular agenda item or goal that they have. And they have certain, pilot or correction projects that they've identified as important projects that they want to go ahead and progress, right? But anyway, in regards to the MPO specifically, there's a term, again, in their job description, it's called performance-based planning. So, to me, performance-based planning, if I look at the interpretation of that, that's taking the plan and following through and overseeing it to the actual construction. However, that doesn't seem to be of importance specifically, and again, so then I want to also bring up the fact that perhaps organizations associate organizational structure relative to Department of Transportation and Public Works DOT, again, title, Department of Transportation, you think that would have something to do with transportation, right? Well, it really doesn't, other than buses. And then the emergency evacuation airplane resources that they do have. So they manage buses and they manage that. And then public works can't function because they're overburdened with all kinds of things. And I'm thinking maybe some just redistribution of some of the tasking under Department of Transportation that Public Works has over Department of Transportation reorganization, take some of the load off the director there and redistribute it potentially to another director that might have more latitude to accomplish more things relative to Department of Transportation, for example. So again, two different subject areas specifically, but honing down on specific things.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other discussion? Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. I can volunteer to put together kind of a summary and some items and how that workflow kind of is structured, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting and then see, where we go from there.
If that is I thank you for volunteering. If that is the consensus of the body, not anybody have any objection to Commissioner Spellman taking a first crack at this? Not seeing any. Welcome to,
So
Commissioner
in regards to this, can I talk to Commissioner Spellman on my own relative to these items, or no? I can't. He's going to do his own thing because we haven't got a TIG in place yet, correct?
We do not have a TIG in place. And,
all right, that's all
I will turn to our corporation counsel, deputy corporation counsel, to give us the legal specifics on that, if you would. Welcome.
Hello. So, am I explaining how a TIG's created, or?
I think what the commission would like to know is what are the limitations under Sunshine for communication between commissioners outside of a duly noticed public meeting?
Okay, a little bit broad, but I'll try my best. So it's not black and white as much as we'd like it to be, but there essentially the Sunshine Law tries to prevent as much outside interaction as possible, and so if you're outside of a duly noticed meeting, and you have more than one commissioner, then it gets iffy. Depending on what's being discussed, it may or may not be in violation. If it's going over sort of deliberation, or if it is talking about business that might be before the commission, then it's likely something that might run afoul of Sunshine Law. So if there's something that you'd like to work on in smaller groups, then that's what the temporary investigation group is for. That has its own pretty strict rules as well, because they're trying to prevent that outside interaction. But essentially, the way that a TIG works is that the commission decides that it would like to form a TIG, and in the meeting that the TIG is formed, you go over the right responsibilities, powers, and members of that TIG. Line all of those out, what they're going to be investigating. And then you then go do your investigation. The TIG brings the contents of their investigation back to the group for a presentation. At that point, once the TIG presents to the group, it is automatically dissolved. So that's to sort of prevent what's called serial communications, sort of going back and forth. And it's essentially they're trying to prevent commissioners going out communicating outside of the group and then coming back to the group and then speaking to the group multiple times. So it automatically dissolves, and then there is a third meeting after, which the group then deliberates on the presented material.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Chamberlain, you have a question for our legal counsel.
Yeah, so the Sunshine Law, I'm assuming, was developed to prevent conspiracy and corruption among different government entities, members, okay? I'm assuming. And you can verify that or not. But in regards to sharing relative to information which one commissioner already has, rather than having the other commissioner go ahead and try to start at ground zero and then move forward to the same place maybe one commissioner has, because he's decided to take an initiative, it seems rather crippling in regards to effectiveness here. So I don't see any potential corruption and conspiracy associated with this. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly how we can possibly function if there's not that element in place with this Sunshine Law.
So, I mean, you can still bring all the material and pass it over to another commissioner. It just needs to be done in a duly noticed meeting. The idea was that they wanted to make sure that there weren't sort of outside conversations that the commissioners or board members were making meaningful decisions outside of where the public could see and weigh in to these decisions. I'm not sure if that helps with.
Well, it doesn't. Again, it's not an efficient way to function. Okay, it's stupid. And the deal is that as far as the public being able to see it, well, they can see it when they come to the meeting. When you have progress, what you're doing is you're limiting progress by having these rules in place, right? So if you want to move things ahead, you have to be able to function effectively. And this is not allowing a function effectively.
Commissioner, I would say that very many people who serve on boards and commissions, including those who are elected, would tend to agree with you to a certain extent, especially given that the state legislature, both the House and the Senate, exempts themselves from the requirements of the Sunshine Law that they imposed on us. So, unfortunately, our Depre Corporation Council has no power to take out a magic wand and suspend sunshine for the purposes of efficiency. Certainly, and it probably is outside the purview, or it's on the edge of the purview of this commission to study and make a recommendation to the state to change the sunshine law, except to the extent that that would make county operations more efficient. I saw your hand come up, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just want
Chamberlain.
to make a request to corporate counsel. If there's any possible way to work on or address or let us know what some workarounds are associated with this. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So if there's any workarounds associated with this, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I think
I can if you have specifics that'll make it easier to sort of tell you whether there are potential workarounds. I can look into it, but unfortunately, sunshine is one of those things that they, or not unfortunately, but it's just one of those things that they tend to lean more on the side of requiring as much openness as possible, which it makes it hard to find workarounds for situations like this. But I will certainly look into that for you.
Commissioner Moore.
I agree 100% with you, Commissioner Chamberlain. It's one of the things when I got on this commission is like, you can't talk to each other. I mean, to me, you always get a better outcome if you collaborate. And so collaboration requires sharing information, but apparently it's not the way it works here in Hawaii. I came from Washington State, and we had the Open Public Meeting Act, and there, as long as you didn't have a quorum, you weren't making decisions, you were fine to talk to people, but apparently that's not the way it works here in Hawaii. So I guess what I have learned, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to individually go out and talk to people, come back and share the information with this commission, and then everybody hears it. But you're right that there's doubling up of effort. So if I'm talking to one person, you might be talking to that same person. So you're not sharing and collaborating the work, but apparently that's kind of what we're stuck with.
So, commissioners, one alternative to this that would be fully compliant with sunshine would be to we typically hold one meeting a month. There is nothing stopping us from holding more than one meeting a month, given that we can obtain a quorum to attend. I know that may be problematic for some of us who have other jobs that they have to take time off of to be able to attend these meetings. But that is one option. The other option, is forming a TIG. The disadvantage of forming a TIG is whoever's on the TIG works on it without any input from those who are not on the TIG. And the TIG basically operates walled off from the rest of the commission until it has a report. And then it releases a report in a public meeting, and then we just sort of let that sit to another regularly scheduled meeting when we can then discuss the report. The advantage is that those people who are on the TIG can collaborate freely outside of the duly noticed public meeting. The disadvantage is that you can't tell us anything until you're ready to issue a report. I'll tell you, the bigger the topic, the harder it is as a TIG, because you don't have the lifting capacity of the entire commission. If we were to do a TIG, the things you need to do a TIG is you have to have a problem statement, a scope, and a timeline. Those are the things you need to have in order for this body to pass a motion to form a TIG. And you have to list the members of the TIG, which cannot be a quorum of this body. It typically is an odd number because if you have a difference of opinion on the TIG and you have 4 members, then you end up having essentially 2 reports out of the TIG. One from 2 members and one from the other 2 members. If 2 fall on each side of a question. So the typical TIG for this body would be probably 3 members. Commissioner Moore.
So is there a rule that you can't have everybody on the TIG? Because it seemed like the last TIG that we formed, everybody wanted to participate. So, I mean, to me, the workaround is you put everybody on the TIG and you can all talk.
I see our technical writer with her hand up. I will recognize you, Shelley. The floor is yours.
Okay. In answer to Commissioner Moore's question, my understanding is that it needs to be less than a quorum to have a TIG. So you couldn't have more than 4 people on a TIG. So that's the answer to that question. Regarding the discussion that's going on, it does seem to. It's a challenge in trying to decide what comes first, because to have a TIG, you have to have people who want to serve on a TIG. You need to have the scope formed. You need to have an idea of what you're trying to do. And that has to come before the body, and someone needs to prepare that. So to have 2 people who may be interested in looking at this, they would need to collaborate to at least come up with the question and the scope, which I think is, I'm not even sure if the commission is even there yet. I think Commissioner Spellman was just trying to come up with, something that the commission could look at, and Commissioner Chamberlain is offering assistance in that. So you can't really form a TIG today because you don't have that at all, but you need to be able to come up with ideas to form that TIG. That's the dilemma. That's the challenge of working with the Sunshine Law. Unless the commissioner is going to sit here and try to develop a scope together. In the past, if 2 individuals said, "Hey, we're interested in being on a TIG," the commission would would say, "All right, develop your scope and come to us, and we will review it. Come up with your scope, come up with your timeline, and so on." So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, from a Sunshine Law standpoint, whether that is not permissible.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Okay, I got an idea. All right. I was wondering if you can be the POS, point POD, I guess, point of distribution. So I can go ahead and send you information to send to Commissioner Spellman, and Spellman can send something back to me. And guess what? We're not talking individually, okay? We're using the secretary, okay, of the commission to be the point of distribution. It seems like that might possibly be an effective means of functioning here and not being caught up in this stupid Sunshine Law.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, here I see Deputy Corporation Counsel, so I think we're going to get some legal advice.
So as lovely as that idea is, that is likely to be considered serial communications. Even utilizing a distribution person is something that the OIP frowns upon. and sort of any sort of they don't really like pass-throughs or communicating through other people. They have a few opinions on the matter.
How do they communicate among each other? I wonder. Whoever this governing department is.
My understanding, it's the Office of Information Practices, OIP. It is an arm of what department of state government? Is it Attorney General?
I can't remember if it is. I'd have to go back and check.
Okay. So let's take that under consideration. Nothing that we do here has a force and effect of law. We're not a decision body. We're an advisory body. What are the risks of violating sunshine in a minor way? Not that I am suggesting that we do this, but I think there is always the opportunity that an individual commissioner may decide to do something that might not be advised, but it just happens. I'll leave it there. Do we have other topics? I see Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. So communication is a core process. It's involved in every workflow. So when we look at boards and commissions, we can bring up the issue of how communication functions. And then if we wanted to, we could advise the executive branch to initiate adjudication of this particular component of the sunshine laws as a restriction of freedom of speech, especially since, as the chair brought up, the state exempted themselves from it, which seems kind of unfair. Also, there's another option. We can schedule special meetings with a very limited agenda where we only convene to talk about that one agenda item, and it could be half an hour, and then we can go on our way. So that could be that could, instead of taking a day off to attend this meeting. And I super appreciate everybody extending the hours of the meeting to 3 from 2. I really appreciate that because it really gives us a lot more time to kind of delve into these discussions. So, we can do it on a lunch break where we just come together, say, on a week and say, hey, here's everything I found so far. What do you think? Have a little discussion and then adjourn, and then we can go back, just throwing that out there.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
We still would need a quorum for that to function, right?
We would need a quorum. We would need 5 of our 9 available positions. Commissioner Dexter.
I think the way to go about this is regarding this whole discussion on grants and all that stuff. Instead of trying to play legal gymnastics to get around sunshine, which I don't agree with at all, maybe we should invite somebody from the mayor's office who's affiliated with that particular process, or whomever the representative is we want to investigate, have them articulate the current state of affairs, and then make a decision whether or not we want to proceed with an investigation. I think that's probably the cleanest way to go about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dexter. I don't have any problem with that. I had no problem in, just like for our previous boards and commissions discussion, we held in abeyance the discussion of scope on boards and commissions until we had a chance to hear from the administration and from the independent nomination board. I think our agenda is going to be pretty full for November. Do we want to invite? First, between our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino, and I, we can figure out who in the mayor's administration we would like to invite to talk about. And we're talking about capital delivery, capital funding, plan implementation. And maybe we invite, with a 3-hour slot, we could have, just like we have 2 guests coming next month, we could invite 2 guests to come or 3 guests to come in a December meeting or in a special meeting. I have no trouble calling a meeting of this body if the body wants to meet more regularly in order to get more work done. I have no trouble with that at all. Thoughts from commissioners? What would you like your chair to do? Options on the table: calling a special meeting of short duration on scoping for this issue, or defer scoping until we can invite appropriate administration guests. Those are the 2 options I see. And then the question becomes, if we invite guests, do we want to have them in a special, do we want to have more than 1 meeting in a month? Commissioner Dexter, then Commissioner Chamberlain.
I would propose we invite somebody from the administration before we start in on any scoping document, just because we need to know what's going on the ground versus, based off of what our discussions have been today. I think that would be the most prudent way to go about it. And then in terms of meetings, I'd like to try and keep it once a month. 3 hours is quite a bit of time already for my schedule. So if we were having more and more special meetings, I don't think I would be able to fulfill my duties to the commission.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I think that one of the first things we got to do is figure out a way to function effectively here, okay? With this sunshine law, it seems like it's crippling. And then if we could get some kind of effective functioning within this commission, and then we could identify specific projects that we want to work on and develop scopes for them and work on them, again, effectively, efficiently. But until we can actually get this workaround relative to the sunshine law, it doesn't seem like we're going to be very productive at all. In my mind, it's so crippling. So Commissioner Spellman has some thoughts relative to how to maybe get some amendment to that, maybe get somebody from the mayor's office and ask for an exception, as apparently the state legislators have been able to do, that they don't have to have this impediment upon. But until we get some functionality in this group, I don't see how we can move forward on anything.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner Chamberlain. One other option would be to ask our technical writer and our corporation counsel to approach OIP or draft, have me draft a letter from the commission to OIP requesting an explicit clarification of what we are allowed to communicate about outside of a duly noticed public meeting. Perhaps in that fashion, we can get some relief. I agree with Commissioner Chamberlain that if the only time that we can talk about business between two members of this commission is during a duly noticed public meeting, we're not going to. It certainly limits the amount of work we're going to be able to get done. Commissioner Moore.
Is the county council subject to the sunshine law as well? Can they talk amongst themselves outside of a meeting? As long as there's no quorum?
I can tell you what practice is. Practice is that two members of council can meet and discuss business that may come before council in a private conversation. But neither of those members can talk to any other member of council about what discussions they've had. If three members attend, let's say there's a public or a workshop that's generally available to the public, and three members of council attend, they are required to report out to the full council on their attendance at a duly noticed public meeting.
And that seems certainly logical. The difference between our commission and the county council is their decision-making body. I think as Commissioner Chamberlain noted, we don't have any authority to make any decisions that are going to impact government or the people, whereas they do. I would appreciate if you or Shelley Pellegrino would be willing to write a letter requesting basically clarification in the fact maybe they don't understand, you know, these boards and commissions that are trying to get some work done, but we're hamstringed by the Sunshine Law. So I would appreciate something from the state or maybe a higher up just really explaining and hopefully helping them understand how hamstringed we are by this law.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there consensus, Commissioner Chamberlain?
Just want to emphasize that I think the purpose of where the Sunshine Law originated was because of the obvious problem of conspiracy and corruption, okay? And trying to get personal gain or some gain out of this. So what they're trying to preempt that from them in their government body. But again, you have to look at how the origins evolved and then bring that into context. I don't have any idea about how I could get some benefit out of this myself, you know? So conspiracy, corruption, I don't get it. So anyway, I just want to make sure that we make that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino. You have the floor.
I'm happy to work with Deputy Corporation Counsel Nunokawa. Just to clarify what permitted interactions are, I haven't reviewed them as of late, but my understanding was that you could have a permitted interaction between two members as long as they did not make a decision to vote, or, you know, any sort of, they didn't have any decision-making authority. And then you could not serially communicate. So for example, Commissioner Spellman and Commissioner Chamberlain could not speak to each other, and then Commissioner Chamberlain contact another commissioner and explain that. I believe that you can have a permitted interaction between two commissioners, but if you'll allow me to speak more carefully with Mr. Nunokawa and possibly OIP, maybe we could just clarify what those permitted interactions are, or if they've changed recently. But that was that's my general understanding of what a permitted interaction is under the Sunshine Law.
And I concur that's my understanding as well. The issue is what sort of constitutes serial communications, and that's more of a gray area. So getting some clarification might be good.
For both of you, Ms. Pellegrino and Deputy Corporation Counsel Nunakawa, would a more formal communication with OIP be better in terms of actually writing and saying, here's the issue, we want to be sure that we are fully compliant with Sunshine Law? What is this interaction between two members of the commission permissible? Thoughts?
It's hard to say. Formal opinions do have the effect of law, at least up until the point that it gets challenged in court. They are sort of the governing body when it comes to Sunshine and UIPA, as well as the fact that when it comes to formal opinions, they're pretty backlogged as well. So it normally takes a number of months to get a formal opinion. So if you'd like, we could try to reach out to them informally first and get their take on sort of the situation, and then decide next steps once we get, because usually we can get guidance from them within a day or so.
Technical writer Pellegrino, thoughts?
I agree. The Office of Information Practices has an attorney of the day, and this would be a question that they would typically answer, I'm sure. And if they think they need to provide more clarification and we need to send something more formal, maybe they would suggest that. But I imagine they get asked this question quite often, and we could also provide this exact scenario, and then just to confirm what their response would be.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Chamberlain and then Commissioner Moore, and then I'm going to entertain a formal motion.
Okay. Just a quick comment. Last time I dealt with OIP, it took me 2 years to get a response. So.
Commissioner Moore.
I'm wondering if other counties have this same problem. Do they have commissions boards similar to ours where they're hamstrung with the Sunshine Law? I mean, you can always learn from other boards and commissions, other counties, what they're doing. Maybe they've already researched this. It's just an idea.
Thank you. What I will entertain share is a formal motion to request our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino, to work with our Deputy Corporation Counsel, Nunakawa, to make an informal inquiry of OIP for clarification on this issue, and if necessary, draft a formal communication. I will entertain that motion.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Moore. Is that a second, Commissioner
Chamberlain? Second from Chamberlain, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Moore, discussion? No, none necessary. Commissioner Chamberlain, a second. You're good with it, so no discussion necessary. Other members of the commission, discussion?
Can we amend it to reach out to Kauai or Rhode Island?
You can, as a commissioner, you can, the seconded motion on the floor is subject to amendment. You can entertain 2 amendments before clearing either of the amendments under Robert's rules. So if you'd like to make an amendment, you can move to amend the motion on the floor.
So I'm wondering, like, what would be would it be better to informally reach out to the corporation councils of Hawaii Big Island, or is there an analogous commission?
Would you like to amend it to ask our technical writer and deputy corporation counsel to inquire with their colleagues in other counties prior to contacting OIP? Is that the amended motion?
Sounds great. I think there's some value there.
Is there a second? I saw a thumbs up for Lee. I also heard Commissioner Moore. So
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
So now the motion as amended. Any discussion of the amendment? Seeing none. So we will vote on the amendment first and then on the main motion as amended, if the amendment is carried. Those in favor of the amendment that is on the floor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 So the motion has been unanimously amended. Any discussion of the motion now as amended? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion as amended, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Carried unanimously. So moved. So passed. As a famous character from pop fiction would say, make it so. Do we have any other discussion on the agenda item of review and discussion of current list of potential topics? Is there any direction Commissioner Moore?
Thank you. I'm still interested in the whole issue of the sea level rise, county roadways, and everything that involves. And I've been doing a little bit of reading and research on my own. I would like to be able to reach out to people at this point and gather additional information and bring back to the next meeting, if that is okay with everybody, which I think it probably will be, hopefully.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I submitted some documentation relative to review, relative to different commissions and so on and so forth in written format to Pellegrino. And I'm not sure that everybody got to see that, but I thought one of the ideas was to go ahead and discuss the what happened in the past relative to the boards and commissions that was discussed earlier with David Good, and then what possibly the consolidation currently might be. So that wasn't, I don't know if anybody even saw that. So.
Technical writer Ms. Pellegrino, the communication from Commissioner Chamberlain. Can that be now introduced and circulated?
The communications from Mr. Chamberlain regarding the boards and commissions was distributed to everyone, I think on Monday, and then it's also in the board packet, and it has been available to the public since then as well. So it's totally open for discussion.
Commissioner Chamberlain, would you like to sort of give us the 50,000 foot sketch of your ideas?
Well, again, it's all a written format, so if everybody had an opportunity to look at it, but you know what I basically did was I took the information that I could gather from the 1011 work that was done by the Cost of Government Commission, and then I summarized that relative to cost analysis and all that. And then, again, I just made a overview of potential consolidation of the current commissions, and there's no question in my mind that David Good is absolutely correct that this has got, we're just overburdened with all these boards of commission. How you even think that they're going to get staffed is incredible to me. So the importance of actually consolidation is again sensible, and it would be more effective and efficient, which I like to think that I think very prominently of.
Yeah, I am looking online right now at the meeting packet. Excuse my. Oh, there we go. So you were sort of aiming at consolidating environmental and resource related boards, public safety and regulatory bodies, planning and land use, social services and community development, government efficiency and oversight as sort of, okay, these are the broad topics that could be discussed for consolidation. Seeing Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you. It's a nice kind of overview and some suggestions on where things can be consolidated, which I think a restructuring at this point, it's a good time for it. I definitely agree, and I'm glad that we're going to be discussing it in more depth in the coming meetings. A couple of things that kind of shown out to me. Consolidating the Molokai Planning Commission and the Lanai Planning Commission into the Maui Planning Commission, I would be really opposed to that. Like, the various islands within this county are starkly different, and the planning approaches and strategies for Molokai would not work on Maui and vice versa. And Lanai has its own unique situation with such a large landowner. So that particular one, given my current employment and my experience with these various commissions, really kind of showed out to me as something maybe to reconsider. But it does indicate a need for, or kind of an item for discussion about community-based commissions. So, for example, we have the Hana Advisory Board, we have the South Maui Advisory Board, we have the Paia Haiku Advisory Board. The planning department has a number of commissions. But there are also, we have our community plan areas, and that's essentially how the island of Maui is broken up. And Lanai and Molokai are their own community plan areas. And so if we had community plan based commissions that could entertain business of all sorts that span all of the different departments for the county for their particular community plan area, I think there might be some significant benefit to that as we consolidate and restructure the Maui County Islands commissions as well. Just some thoughts from reading those two documents.
Commissioner Moore.
First of all, thank you for getting this started. I think it's really well done, and I appreciated the second iteration, which had the cost savings. One of the things that I'm looking at is these different boards and commissions is how many of these boards and commissions actually hear appeals, whether they're appeals for code appeals or tax appeals. And I'm wondering, oftentimes when you get people on boards and commissions, they may not understand all the law, even though, they're citizens. It's great that they're on these boards. But if you don't understand the law and you're making decisions on these appeals, then they're oftentimes going to be going to court. Again, another costly step. So I'm wondering if the county is considered hiring someone just to do appeals, an appeals attorney, basically. And that attorney would be a contract employee brought in, wouldn't work for the county, but that contract appeals attorney would hear all the different appeals, knowing that that person understands the law, and if people are unhappy with the decision, then they can move on to court. But it's just been my experience, if you have someone who handles just all the appeals, that understands the law, there are fewer appeals that move forward. So that's just an idea. I don't know if it, of course, it would have to be a charter amendment, so I don't know if that would pass. But I know that in practice that has worked well in a number of cases.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, relative to what Commissioner Spellman says, I understand the demographics and the geographics associated with different islands and so forth. But, you know, we do have a council representative formation government here that represents the different areas. So in regards to some of these commissions, I would suggest that maybe representative beings being from those different locations to represent that particular location relative to the planning commission, that doesn't forego that the community planning part of that and that particular representative communicating to that local community plan group what's going on in the planning commissions, right? So what we can do is basically follow the same structure that seems to be designed for the Maui County, big picture, and then transfer that over into planning departments, and then still be able to consolidate the individual planning committees or commissions. All right, that's my suggestion.
Interesting concept. I think, you know, as we get into this discussion and we start to figure out what the scope is. Certainly the previous round of this, the 2010-2011, my understanding is the first thing they did was they took off the table any board or commission that was required by state statute. So those ones were essentially sacrosanct. So we're gonna, I think we're going to need to have some legal advice from Corporation Counsel. Is there a legal requirement that there be a planning commission for each of the inhabited islands? Is that a legal requirement, and we can't consolidate them? One thought I had in this discussion was, if you were to consolidate to a single planning commission, would you expand the number of planning commissioners so that you would have, you know, one or two planning commissioners from each distinct geographic area? So you might have two from Lanai, two from Molokai, two from Hana, two from upcountry, two from. So you'd have a planning commission of potentially 18 members. So you might have to change. You might have to make it 19 members, or maybe you go to 15 members, and something where, rather than see, right now we've got, because communities felt that they weren't heard, they screamed at their residency council member and said, "Get us an advisory body." So you had the Hana advisory body, which has been in existence for, seems like forever, and then more recently South Maui, and then Paia Haiku, Makuao. Were they trying to solve a problem that could have been solved in a different fashion? And then we went and amended the charter, right, to say that boards and commissions should have geographic representation. So I guess my question would be to look at, are we getting out of the advisory committees what we want as a community, or would that be better served by expanding the size of the planning commission and making sure that there's more opportunities for geographic diversity? Commissioners, other thoughts? Commissioner Chamberlain.
I guess I want to refer back to David Good's testimony relative to what he observed in regards to his trying to administer public works as a director, in regards to how these commission boards, multiple ones that he had to confront and deal with, and how crippling that was for the actual department to function. So again, we have to look at effective efficiency here in regards to how to manage these things to make it all work and function. And throwing in all this bureaucratic bull crap, it just doesn't really help a lot.
Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. So as I'm kind of hearing in the discussion, perhaps some sections of analysis could be whether or not we want to break out adjudication from the roles of some of these commissions, and so that we have one group of commissions that is responsible for is quasi-judicial, and then one group of commissions that's just advisory. And the quasi-judicial could have a large scope. It could be a simple one commission, and any appeal or any issue requiring adjudication or decision making would go to that one single commission. I think training of how boards and commissions, new commissioners are trained, what kind of archive they have access to, knowledge retention, and that understanding that and how that process functions is pretty critical, and something that we could also use for how personnel services train new hires for any department. If we wanted to look at the structuring of the regular government. So I think we're definitely highlighting some items that we could put, kind of sub-bullet out.
One thought that just crossed my mind was, do we want to ask the various departments that support all of these boards and commissions some real simple questions like, currently, how many members are seated on your board or commission? How often do you meet? How many times have you not met because you didn't have anything to do? There was no agenda for that board or commission to consider. How many times you've not met because you had a failure to obtain quorum? Sort of that, taking a broad look at all the boards and commissions and seeing where, I think it's a lot tougher to recommend consolidating a board or a commission that's really busy versus consolidating a board. Just like our testifier, Mr. Good, said, when they looked and said some of these bodies, barely met because they didn't have anything to do. So why not put them together? Because then at least maybe, once a month or once every couple of months, you'd have enough agenda items to actually have a substantial discussion. Thoughts? Is that would we like to make that inquiry to the various departments? Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. Is that something that the technical writer can do? Because you can kind of pull a lot of that data from the existing sites, or you can reach out to the clerical teams for those boards or commissions, I think, and maybe just kind of pull that data together
We can,
without a questionnaire, because I do like the idea of a questionnaire, like a qualitative tool to try and pull out what the current directors feel about their boards and commissions. And as Mr. Good indicated, he got a lot of his ideas from the division heads. So possibly we can also distribute that questionnaire to the division heads as well.
or we could ask the chairs of each department to distribute. I saw Commissioner Moore's hand up and then Commissioner Chamberlain.
No.
Oh, no, you're fine. Commissioner Moore, Commissioner Chamberlain. Are you muted?
Sorry about that. I provided the committee here, the commission, a basic foundation to look at relative to one of the agenda items today, okay? And then on my submission, I would suggest that if we're going to go ahead and look at the consolidation of these different departments, or commissions, I should say, that there be an addition to what I wrote that would be in compliance with the previous investigation, which the accounting department here would provide relative to fiscal benefit of combining these commissions. Okay, so that came out in the previous report, and maybe that we can ask the department to go ahead and put together something similar relative to financial analysis of these boards combining together.
Perhaps the question, members of the commission, would be how many staff members and how much staff time is being taken to support each individual board. And then from there, if we combine them, obviously, if you have one fewer board, I don't know whether you chop the staff time in half or it's some, because, right, if you combine them two, and both of them were sort of idling, then yeah, you could probably get by with a portion of a staff person to support that board or commission. But if both of them have a fairly substantial agenda each meeting, put them together, you might not be able to reduce the number of staff assigned. So I think that's one question that we'll have to try to.
Well, and I just would say that on the previous report there was a fiscal analysis on the result of potentially combining the different commissions. Okay, so I don't know what they used to get those numbers, and who they used to do the analysis, but I would suggest that we follow the same formula.
Yeah, I wasn't here in 2010, 2011. I suspect that what they got from the administration was sort of what is the cost of an FTE, a full-time employee or full-time employee equivalent to staff a board. And then they just said, okay, if this board goes away, we don't need that FTE, so therefore we save the cost of that FTE. I think it was probably as simple as that. But it might bear some additional investigation. If we could find a member of that Cost of Government Commission who remembers what they did to come back and talk to us, I'd be open to that as well. Commissioner Moore.
I agree. It looks like somebody did some number crunching, and perhaps our technical writer could look back on the records and find out, how they came up with these numbers. Certainly, they would need to be updated. But I think it's really important, particularly for this commission, the cost of government, that we've got numbers to go along with it. But we need to make sure that they're updated numbers. But I think this is what the public is looking for. How can we be more efficient? How can we reduce our costs still be efficient? So I think this is great. And again, thank you, Commissioner Chamberlain for getting this started.
I agree. Thank you. Further discussion. And I'm watching our time. We are approaching our witching hour. Commissioner Moore, you had your hand up again.
Sorry, I didn't take it down. Whoops. Sorry.
Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. I think we also, Commissioner Moore brought up talking about kind of managed retreat. I think that's like a huge issue that deserves some of our time as well, looking at all those processes for Public Works and Planning Department and Department of Finance and who's going to pay for this stuff, you know, as they move buildings back, where they can build, where they can't build, highways, moving them here, all the different layers of government, national, state, local, and then nonprofits that have kind of inserted themselves. It's a huge topic, and I think, you know, putting together a nice little kind of a bullet section for that and bringing some people in to discuss that as well would be a good use of our time.
Agreed. Even at yesterday's Disaster Resilience and International Affairs and Planning Committee of Council DRIP, the question of managed retreat came up. The county does have a managed retreat fund. So there is a specific fund containing money for managed retreat. But I don't think the mechanism to do it has been established yet. So that might be very ripe for discussion and investigation. And that in turn probably needs a scope. I am going to try to wrap this up. We've had some excellent discussion. We have some action items. So I'd like to move on to the next agenda item, which is a review of those action items. And I'd like to call on our technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino, to review for us the action items that we created in this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. It might take me a while to go through them, but I've got them documented. I do know that at the next meeting, we will have a representative from the mayor's office and the chair of the INB at that meeting. I know we have quite a bit regarding boards and commissions. I will definitely follow through with the action items that the commission. I didn't itemize them all in my notes at this time.
Okay. Will you be? Can you send out to the members
Sure.
of the commission prior to issuance of the draft minutes of this
Yep.
meeting that list,
Yep.
so that we're reminded of the things we have committed to as commissioners?
I can do that.
Okay. Any discussion, commissioners? Seeing none. Next meeting date and agenda. I think our agenda is kind of full. Technical writer, Ms. Pellegrino.
Our next meeting date is November 14th.
And still 10 to 1?
10 to 1. I'm not sure. I do have one question. I know that Commissioner Chamberlain I'm not sure about I guess we're working on that MPO document. So I guess that would be some of the issues that you're working on with, you sent a number of documents out, but that hasn't been identified per se.
Yeah, again, following the meeting with the MPO, he directed me to go ahead and because he's not an implementation department or agency, the Public Works department has been lined and specified in the STIP as far as the implementing agency. So he requested me to send my request directly to Director Molina, which I did. So I sent a letter to him about that.
Would Interim Chair Dust, would you like that specifically included on the agenda next month as well?
I think so, especially if Commissioner Chamberlain gets a response from Director Molina, Public Works Director Molina. That would be helpful. It also may help to inform the scoping that may be going on. Is that it for our next meeting? Are we any comments for the good of the order? Seeing none, thank you all for your very lively participation. This has been an excellent meeting. I will now adjourn the October 10th meeting of the Cost of Government Commission. The time now is 12:55. We are adjourned.